Albert Einstein once said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." In today's video, we will explore hypothetical scenarios for World War III and its potential impact on global borders. Which countries will be allies and opponents if World War III takes place? What happens to neutral countries? What will happen if they resort to using nuclear bombs? This video will try to answer all these questions. Let me clarify a few things. Firstly, it's impractical to cover every scenario in this video, so we will explore only the most likely outcomes. Secondly, we assume the moderate use of nuclear weapons except for the fourth scenario. Thirdly, the predictions are based on current information and historical actions of nations and regimes, so everything shared here is not will happen, but might happen. A third world war could arise if Russia and China unite against NATO. Neither country alone can overpower the United States and its allies. Even together, China and Russia might struggle against the West, but a strategic alliance, along with some other nations, can offer advantages due to abundant resources, large militaries, and China's economic influence. Scenario 1. Russia versus NATO, but China is neutral. Imagine, in a grim turn of events, the war in Ukraine unfolds with Russia resorting to desperate measures, launching a tactical nuke at a Ukrainian base. Then, NATO will respond swiftly, declaring war on Russia and initiating Article 4 of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Despite suffering heavy casualties, Putin will seek support from allies and authoritarian rulers, but many remain hesitant to join the conflict. Notably, China, a crucial player, distances itself from Russia, refusing military aid due to its strict stance on nuclear weapons. As NATO forces advance by capturing Moscow and neutralizing Russian resistance, the absence of Chinese support seals Russia's fate. Facing a superior military, Russia crumbles under the pressure and Putin meets a mysterious end in the Kremlin. NATO's retaliation extends beyond Russia, targeting countries allied with Moscow during the conflict. Governments are dismantled and reorganized, shaping a post-war landscape where the geopolitical fallout is far-reaching. The absence of China's support proves decisive, as without it, Russia stands no chance in a conventional war against NATO. Neutral countries, including North Korea, likely refrain from aiding Russia without China's backing. The aftermath sees Russia broken up and new governments are established. There's even a possibility of China taking advantage of the chaos by potentially invading Russia's eastern territories rich in natural resources. In this hypothetical scenario, the aftermath involves the division of Russia into several smaller countries. China's influence extends into the Far Eastern and Siberian districts, establishing puppet governments that serve its interests. These nations act as a buffer between China and the pro-Western nations, in Western Russia overseen by NATO, with close ties to Europe and the United States. Borders of Central Asian nations such as Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan may see changes with new governments in place. Chaos in the Middle East ensues with potential invasions and shifts in power. Israel might seize the opportunity to expand its territory by invading Syria. In this bleak scenario, where Russia faces defeat without China's backing, the world witnesses a significant reshaping of borders. While the Middle East experiences turbulence, the only substantial changes occur in Russia, split into smaller countries manageable by both the West and China. Scenario 2. Russia and China versus NATO. China aligns itself with Russia, forging a global alliance to counteract the encroaching influence of the West. Leaders Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin mobilize authoritarian rulers worldwide, warning that failure to support their cause will lead to Western intervention. This strategic move results in the alignment of single-party governments across East Asia, Central Africa, and the Middle East with China and Russia. Leveraging its economic might, China compels nations to join its side, and Latin American countries deeply indebted to China are among those forced to support. Even nations like Mexico, Venezuela, and Brazil, with a significant U.S. presence, might align with China to avoid economic collapse. As the conflict unfolds, a flood of support, including resources, weapons, and soldiers, pours into the war zones in the Americas and Europe. Despite NATO and its allies' efforts, they cannot withstand the overwhelming backing for China and Russia, leading to the fall of Western powers. Although an unlikely scenario presently, the The rise of hypernationalism and China's expanding influence raises concerns about the potential future feasibility of such a scenario. The aftermath envisions a significant reshaping of the world map. China claims dominance over all of East Asia, reorganizing nations like Japan, the Philippines, and Indonesia into Chinese territories or puppet governments. Australia and New Zealand eventually succumb to Chinese influence. The Korean peninsula reunifies under Kim Jong-un's leadership imposed by China. In Central Asia, uncertainty prevails regarding India, which might try to defend itself by attacking weakened China right after World War III. The Middle East maintains similar borders contingent on governments supplying China and Russia with essential resources. In Europe, devastation is widespread, incorporating Finland, Sweden, Norway, and potentially others into Russian borders. Germany, heavily reliant on Russian fossil fuels, may maintain borders through concessions. The rest of continental Europe could consolidate into the European Communist Federation. The Americas witness a transformed landscape, with Canada maintaining its borders, the United States dismantled, and Alaska incorporated into Russia's eastern territory. Mexico gained a few of the territories of U.S. states, forming positive diplomatic ties with Beijing. The southeastern U.S. is given to Cuba, expanding its borders with Russian aid. Territories in the northwestern U.S. are controlled by Beijing, while the East Coast is divided into smaller territories managed by Russia. Across the Caribbean and Central America, Cuba extends its influence, and Belize and Guatemala integrate into Mexico. South America experiences stable borders influenced by existing economic ties with China. The future implications involve potential dismantling of Western democracies and the rise of authoritarian regimes, setting the stage for possible future conflicts among authoritarian leaders. Scenario 3: Russia and China versus NATO. But NATO wins. NATO and its allies engage in war and emerge victorious, leveraging the overwhelming military might primarily contributed by the United States. The prospect of China and Russia convincing other nations to join their fight against the West is deemed unlikely, given NATO's combined strength surpassing that of the opposing forces. Russia's military inadequacies, as evidenced by its struggle against the Ukrainian military and China's ongoing modernization, contribute to NATO's potential success. After World War III, the scenario envisions Russia being divided into various parts, each potentially governed by a new democratic government, established with support from Western nations. However, preventing a unified Russia from rebuilding strength and sparking future conflicts poses a significant challenge. There's speculation that a divided and Western-controlled Russia might evoke memories of European colonization, while a new government in Moscow transitioning Russia into a more democratic form is considered conquering. Russia will remain a formidable task, and NATO might focus on rebuilding Western Russia, leaving the eastern part as a lawless, fluctuating frontier. China's substantial size and population present challenges in restructuring post-World War III. The pervasive brainwashing of Chinese citizens against Western ideologies complicates the formation of stable governments. A potential solution involves breaking China into several parts with a new local government to undo the brainwashing and enable democratic elections. Tibet and Taiwan could gain independence, and various sections might be established based on ethnic identities. The reunification of North and South Korea under a democratic system ending the Kim dynasty might also take place. The aftermath of World War III could trigger global uprisings against oppressive regimes, leading to demands for democracy. Revolutions in the Middle East, Central Africa, and Latin America might result in more democratic governments, although borders may not undergo significant changes. Ukraine would gain freedom from Russian forces, and Crimea would be returned. Belarus might install a new government or be incorporated into Western Russia. The recurring theme is the dismantling of powerful countries on the losing side, with new democratic governments installed. Africa, South America, and the South Pacific might not witness substantial border shifts unless local conflicts escalate. Scenario 4: Nations end up relying on nuclear weapons. The fourth scenario involves global powers resorting to an all-out nuclear conflict at an early stage, potentially triggered by miscommunication. There is uncertainty regarding which country might launch the first atomic bomb, but it's certain that this action would set off a chain reaction, with the second bomb being launched back in retaliation. The international impact of this scenario would be devastating, going beyond country boundaries. Regions, including North America, Europe, and Asia, would likely become uninhabitable, resulting in the instantaneous loss of billions of lives. Those who survive would face the grim reality of being exposed to radioactive materials. The atmospheric impact would give rise to new diseases in areas beyond the immediate blast zones. Even nations less affected by direct conflict would encounter challenges such as radioactive rain, contaminated air and water, scarcity of resources, economic collapse, power struggles, and potential regional wars. Over time, temperatures would drop significantly, even below 0 degrees Celsius freezing in summer for several years, and global precipitation would decline by half in coming years. This catastrophic scenario would severely disrupt food supplies due to adverse climatic conditions, resulting in limited crop growth and high levels of radioactive contamination in the crops that do survive. By this point, an estimated 90% of humanity would have died directly or indirectly to the consequences of war. The remaining survivors would grapple with the daunting task of recovery or face the risk of eventual extinction. That's it for the video. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.